just got done, well, not just, earlier today, watching the ALDS. Game 5 between the Seattle Mariners and Detroit Tigers, which was one of the craziest, most intense, edge of my seat sporting experiences in my time watching. Sports as a fan of a team. 15 innings, longest winner-go-home game in MLB history. Just really crazy, intense stuff. Multiple times I thought we had won the game. Multiple times I thought that we had lost the game. And ultimately, the Mariners do get the win. And I have to say that, especially with these playoffs and the start of the postseason, but for the past few months in general, I've been absolutely engrossed in baseball this year. And I was a little bit last year as well, but not to the extent that I'm feeling it now. And right now, of all the major sports, even though I do weekly NFL videos, right now, baseball is my favorite sport to watch for the time being. Like, hockey season and the NBA season have both started, and I still haven't watched a game. I've just been so locked into NFL and MLB. And I was wondering if this was maybe sort of a thing with me getting older, like, okay, like, this is how I know I've officially hit UNC status, because I'm out here watching baseball and like enjoying it so much. And because my entire life, basically, I've heard that baseball is dying, only old people watch it, this, that, and the other, and that has been the trend. For years and years, we've been seeing news reports about, all-time low TV viewership numbers, and people 18 to 35, rank baseball as, one of their least favorite of the major four sports. And it seemed like baseball was going to be a sport that just sort of faded out, and there's people anticipating that the NHL would sort of jump into that number 3 spot, and then eventually MLS would sort of push out the MLB to become the 4th of the big 4 North American sports leagues. But the metrics and the numbers are backing up what I have been feeling, so I found some different articles here. First of all, let me put in this graphic that I found. This is sort of what prompted me to do this video, and you'll see at the bottom there's an asterisk. Percentage rise in viewership compared to 2024. And these are stats from MLB. Viewership on Fox is up 10%. Viewership on MLB Network is up 13%. TBS is up 16%. NHK World, that's in Japan, that's up 22%. ESPN's up 22%. And MLB TV is up 27%. And you may be saying, okay, well that's up in 2024, but if things have been down, this still isn't a good number. But 2024 also saw a bump in popularity. Merchandise sales in 2024 were 43% higher than 2021. So we're seeing this gradual increase. And the other interesting thing, so that's just overall viewership being higher, but then if we get into, where is it? So we come in here. It's one of these articles, sorry, I need to find the right one. there was one that was talking specifically about Gen Z and the 18 to 35 crowd. Okay, here we go. So this is specifically from an article from last week titled Wildcard Round Smashes Viewership Records Under Current Format by Brian Murphy. So it says the 4 series in the opening round of MLB's postseason set viewership records and saw huge spikes in interest amongst younger viewers. In total, the 11 wildcard series games, all of which aired on ESPN networks, averaged 4.625 million viewers. That is a 64% increase from last year's wildcard series, and the highest average for the WCS round since the current format was officially added in 2022. But then where it gets interesting, viewership was up 89% from last year among those under 35 years old, and up 109% among the 17 and under demographics. The most watched game of the bunch is the winner-take-all matchup between the Red Sox and the Yankees on Thursday, which averaged 7.439 million viewers. So between 18 and 35, that's your Gen Z and your younger millennials, because I'm a millennial, I still fall into that demographic. Viewership up 89% and up over 100% for 17 and unders. If you think about it, that's going to be your group who's coming in as the next baseball talent, and the interest in the sport is rising. Viewership for basically every demographic increased. 64% increase in viewership compared to last year's wildcard. And I know that a lot of people are critical of Rob Manfred. A lot of people say he's the worst commissioner in sports. I don't necessarily agree with that, and I don't agree with everything he has done or said. But I do think 3 specific changes that he implemented are responsible for this viewership increase, and I do give him credit for this viewership increase. There's other things as well, like big names like Judge and Ohtani being like basically can't miss TV, but Rob Manfred implementing the pitch clock. Amazing. The game sped up so much. Because the biggest problem that so many non-fans would complain about is that games lasted like 4 hours, and there was almost 200 of them, and they're basically like, what do you want me to do? But now, like, games are regularly ending in fewer than 3 hours because of the pitch clock. And just from my personal point of view, I do think that's one of the major reasons that I have started getting more into baseball, because the same amount of time it would take me to watch an NBA game or an NFL game is now the amount of time it takes me to watch a baseball game, where that used to not be the case. It used to take me significantly more time to watch a baseball game. I found it a lot slower, and you'd have a pitcher be up on the mound, and he'd be sitting there taking his time, 20 seconds, and then he'd throw over to first, and get the ball back, throw over to second, get the ball back, and it's been 2-3 minutes, and he hasn't even thrown a pitch at the strike zone. So I think that's been a huge thing just for me personally. The ghost runner on second for extra innings, again, speeding up the game. The sort of game that I watched today between Seattle and Detroit. There's no good reason a game that intense and long needs to happen in the middle of the season. Like, nobody's gonna be sitting there in like June 3rd and wanting to watch a 5-hour, 6-hour baseball game. But in the postseason, it's intense and it's high stakes, but if it's 2 teams and It's the middle of the regular season and the outcome of the game really doesn't matter. Who cares? And the Ghost Runner has sped up the game again, along with the pitch clock. It has made the viewing experience for me, as a casual fan, much more interesting. And then lastly, the other big change I think has had a positive impact is the universal DH. Because I can understand from like an old school, like, oh, keeping the traditions and this is just what we do in baseball sort of thing, that, you know, having the pitchers also hit. It's sort of like, I can understand why some people liked it or liked the tradition of it and all of that. But again, speaking from a casual fan perspective, having a guy in the lineup who is, his only job basically is to hit the baseball, and often he's the guy hitting it for home runs, is much more exciting and viewer friendly than a guy who 99.9% of the time is a guaranteed out. And if you're a fan of a team, let's say you before the universal DH, you have a team that, let's say you get a runner on base, and then the next batter gets an out, and then that guy, you get a walk or something. Let's say you end up in a situation where you have like a runner on second and first, 2 outs, and then the pitcher comes waddling up to the mound. As a fan, you're like, well, why am I even like getting excited in this high leverage situation? Because I know it's gonna be an out. And in fact, there's lots of times where it could have completely just taken the air out of what should have been a big moment. Sorry, there was one other. Oh, and also what I wanted to say is all these viewership numbers obviously only include legit streaming. But with blackouts, regional blackouts, and then just people not wanting to pay for the legit services still being an issue, obviously pirated streams and things like that will still be like an even larger chunk, and those are people who still might be buying merchandise. Maybe they buy tickets and go to a game 1 or 2 times a year. And they aren't really counted in these metrics. And those people would be more likely to be your younger Gen Z and your 17 and unders. They're the ones hopping on Stream East and things like that, because they might not have the money to pay for a streaming package or whatever. So that obviously is going to be a big chunk as well with your younger people. Average game time this season is at 2 hours and 38 minutes. Japanese viewership is up another 20% from the already all-time high it was at last year. Local regional sports networks have seen an 18% increase from last year. So it's just pretty much across the board. Viewership is going up, and just on an anecdotal level, you know, I'm out here in Australia as an American. I obviously have that homegrown interest in baseball, but there is not really a baseball culture here in Australia. But I can tell you at work, usually the TVs in the staff rooms are playing like rugby or AFL, but they've actually had the World Series, or not World Series, but like the MLB playoffs and all that stuff on the TV for the last little while. And people have been like sitting there on their lunch breaks and watching it and talking about it. And they might be like getting some stuff wrong, obviously, because they're like newer to the sport, but they were interested. And I think you will see that increase in international interest, especially if they continue to do things like the World Baseball Classic. From what I understand, viewership and attendance for the Mexican Baseball League is also at all-time highs. Let me double check. Yeah, so this is from April of this year from the Telegraph Herald. This is an article called Mexican Baseball League's recent growth in attendance now rivals soccer clubs. So remember, this is Mexico. Soccer is massive in Mexico. Mexico's Soccer League opened its 100th season on Thursday, aiming to keep an impressive growth in attendance. Let me see if we can find the figures in here. Okay, according to Othon Diaz, the Diablos Rojos presidents, that's the Mexico City Diablos Rojos, 53% of the team's fans used to be 55 years or older. Now, 74% of them are under the age of 45. 2 years ago, 5 years ago, they were averaging 3,000 fans per game. Now they're averaging 11,000 fans per game. See if I can get some percentage numbers on this, but it seems like they're mostly talking in absolute figures, which are a little bit harder to wrap your head around. So, for instance, so the Diablos Rojos had an attendance of 11,694. They were the most attended team in the league. The second most attended team in the league was the Toros de Tijuana with 11,354. And those two baseball teams had higher attendance than Pachuca, Santos Torreon, Mazatlan, and Ciudad Juarez. And those are Liga MX teams with massive stadiums and massive fan bases with decades and decades of support, getting outdrawn by baseball in Mexico. So this is not just contained to the United States. And although the Australian Baseball League right now is struggling financially, a lot of Australian sports are, especially look at like the A-League, they're struggling quite a bit at the moment. But I do think as the World Baseball Classic comes around, again this year we will see an increase in interest in countries outside of the US. Obviously you already have massive interest in Asia. And I think baseball, well, my whole life, like I said, I heard that baseball's a dying sport, that baseball will die with the boomers, all this sort of stuff. It's all been very negative. Young people don't watch it. But it just feels like culturally the last 2-3 years, especially now, it's just surging. You know, especially my demographic, the generation after me. And it's really interesting to see. And even though I've sort of casually watched baseball a lot of my life, I don't really have my head around a lot of what the different stats mean, and I still don't know like what the different numbers mean. Like when they say a 2-5-4, whatever it is, I don't know what that means. But I know it's like I really enjoy watching the sport now. Like I said, it's probably at the moment my favorite sport to watch, but that, you know, shifts over time as I've talked about in the past. And I feel like a lot of people are coming around on that position. But anyways, guys, it's just a short little, I just wanted to talk about this a little bit because it was front of mind for me. Let me know what you think about this in the comments down below. If you liked the video, please leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more content just like this every single week. Till next time, guys.